Luke's shoes are squishing. Or snapping. This is the glue. I'm taking a video.
Occurred before 1936, you would have been hung in the county seat where the crime was committed. These things got to be like county fairs. 5,000 to 10,000 people would show up to watch somebody be hung. You guys would have gotten out of school as a school group, class project. You would have gone down and watched somebody be hung. The governor didn't think that this was a good idea. So they got the law changed to allow any executions that when the state's going to execute you, those will be done inside the walls of the state penitentiary. Missouri chose cyanide gas as its method of execution. Missouri did not use them. Never had an electric chair. They didn't shoot people. They didn't hang people. They didn't use firing squads. Those methods have been known to fail. The electric chair didn't work. The electricity went off. They tried to hang somebody. The rope broke, the neck didn't snap. Somebody didn't die when they were shot. Cyanide gas, 100% foolproof. No one has ever walked away from cyanide gas execution. When we go down to the gas chamber, you're going to see a stone building that looks real similar to the stone of the two buildings you've just been in. What they did was they poured a concrete pad. They took the bell housing, the airtight, watertight bell housing out of the World War I submarine. They put it in place here, and then they built the building around it. When you go down there, you're going to see two doors. The door on the right, when you walk in, this is the view that you're going to see. There are two chairs in there because 4 times 2 inmates were executed at the same time. 2 of those times they actually committed the same crimes together. You both well know this man and this woman. Carl from Hall, Bunny Brown, Henry. Kidnapped a little 5-year-old and 6-year-old Bobby Greenleaf in Kansas City, 1953. They killed him within hours of kidnapping him. Got a huge ransom amount, went to St. Louis. 6 days later, they were captured. Less than 3 months after they killed that little boy, they were sitting in these chairs. It was not the fastest execution, but it was one of the fastest. What the process was, the other times, the inmates just had the same execution date. They didn't want to say, you're first. So they did 2 inmates at the same time. No pun intended, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. It was a more efficient use of resources. When you go down there, this is the view you're going to see. Underneath each chair was a crock full of sulfuric acid. On the back of each chair is a red box. In that box was 20 to 30 cyanide capsules. There's a lever that goes off on the right side here. If you pull that lever, it drops those tablets into the crock of acid. The pills dissolve. It creates a very visible cyanide gas mist. That mist slowly starts to rise up. You can see it. Except the people in these chairs can't. They have hoods on. They can't see anything. Staff tells them when the gas gets to your neck level, we are going to pound on the door of the glass of the chamber, and you can decide whether you want to take a really deep breath, whether you want to try to hold your breath, but they didn't want somebody wondering at every breath when their last one was going to be. It would take anywhere from 2 to 4 minutes for somebody to die this way. It basically is execution by suffocation. If you want to replicate the feeling, take a piece of duct tape, put it over your nose and mouth, and try to breathe. That's what it was like. It was a very excruciating way to die. After they thought that the inmates were dead, a medical examiner would go in wearing a gas mask. Cyanide gas is just as deadly to the people who are administering it to the people in these chairs. It's just as deadly to them as it is to the people in those chairs. That's why the guy wore a gas mask. You go in here, they would pound on the chest of the people sitting in these chairs to expel whatever gas was in their lungs. Because if they didn't do that, and you breathed it in, you're going to be just as dead as these people were. After they were declared dead and the bodies removed, they would open some vents along the bottom. They would inject fresh air and ammonia. There'd be a real circular effect. And basically they would pump almost pure cyanide gas out of the chimney out into the atmosphere. No way could you do that today. But there are a lot of things that happened back then that no way could you do today. But that's what they did. They would at least move the guard out of whichever tower was in the direction of the way the wind was blowing. They also told the locals, hey, stay inside for a couple of hours. The executions this way were done a minute after midnight. Part of the reason being, the prison was shut down, locals would be in bed, you would have less activity. An execution order is good for 24 hours. If for whatever reason there was a stay of execution, there was a malfunction, something happened that they couldn't carry out the execution, they wanted to make sure they had enough time to try to get it in. So that's why executions were done a little bit after midnight. Process, the warden would drive the inmates down to the chamber. Well, once we get down there, we'll show you where that was. You would have your last meal in the cell up here. When you went down to the chamber, when you get down there, you're going to see that there are two doors, or two cells inside the execution chamber. You're going to see these chairs. The first cell was a holding cell. You would be put in there at 11 o'clock in the evening. It's where you can meet with your spiritual advisor. It was also an area if there was a stay of execution. They didn't want to leave you strapped in a chair for a couple of hours. They would pull you out and put you in that cell. The cell next to that is the cell where they mixed up the chemicals for the executions. The last gas execution was done in 1965. That same moratorium, same reason James Earl Ray wasn't executed, affected this place. The next execution wasn't scheduled until 1989. They went down and they tested this, and it leaked all over the place. And at that time, the governor said, you know, there's got to be a more humane way to execute people. So the law was changed to allow execution by lethal injection. Any of the guys that have been in the hospital, had an operation of any kind, they used anesthesia, you've had 1/3. Well, you've had 1/3 of what they now use. It's just an acid overdose or put you to sleep drugs. I know your parents probably asked for the other 2 doses, but they said no, right? But at any rate, the first dose basically puts them to sleep. The second and third doses stop the heart, but the person is already unconscious and doesn't know it. Last execution, they moved the chairs out. They moved the hospital bed in. The door on the left, when you get down there, there are 2 doors. The door on the right is the execution chamber. The door on the left is the entrance to a viewing area. Missouri requires that there be 6 official witnesses to an execution. Usually these are news reporters, but the victim's family could also be in there. For the last execution, there was really bad blood between the victim's family and the inmate's family wanted to watch. So what they did was they actually divided the viewing area. If you go in the viewing area on the left, you look through the chamber, you're going to notice that there's another room over on the right. The inmate family watched, and that was the last execution that took place inside the penitentiary walls. In 1989, they moved death row from the lower level of this prison, moved it to the prison in Potosi, which is down in southeast Missouri. If you have a death sentence, you're walking among the general population. When you were here, you were locked in your cell. The reason that they moved death row is because it used to be a death sentence didn't take very long to carry out. But once the appeals process started, it might take 5, 10, 15, even 20 years between the time you were sentenced to die and the time they might carry out the execution. The place got too crowded. We didn't have room. So they moved people to the prison in Potosi. If the death sentence is going to be carried out, They used to carry out the death sentence at the toasting. The staff said, you can't ask us to work with inmates for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. No, by the way, I got to execute you tomorrow. He said, we can't do it. So now, if execution's going to take place, that's going to take place at a neighboring prison in Penitentiary.